It's like judging someone running when they've got a broken leg, a sprained ankle. It's just unfair. It's unfair. It's intellectually dishonest. And that's why I said sycophants. That's why I'll go far to call them bigots. Because you're pretending like you're caring about the people Kanye is offending, but you don't realize that it's difficult to watch when you've worked in that, when you've got family in that, to watch someone have that condition and be judged so harshly when you know he's got a condition, but then play out like you're protecting the people that he's offending. I'm gonna be honest, this episode is really passionate to me. I find it so annoying how people self-diagnose, self-label themselves, label others without the correct information. If your point of analysis of a particular mental illness or neurodiversity is from TikTok and maybe an Instagram caption, you are the problem with society today. Sorry.
White family had the control of these highly influential black kids that are half the children of Ye.
Okay guys, before we get into this episode, please do me one quick favor. Please like, comment, share and subscribe in order for the channel to grow. It's gonna need your support, it's gonna need your engagement. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on an episode. Any suggestions that you have, put into the comments. Criticism, praise, they're treated the same. They're all feedback, it's all appreciated. But without further ado, we need to get into the episode. So let's do that.
No, I'm not talking about people who have a genuine mental illness. I'm talking about the vast swathes of people who just seem to find life difficult now.
And exactly this is why it's important for people to use words correctly.
Yeah.
Right? I was talking before about what I call label inflation. If you're just feeling sad and you say that you're depressed and you have depression, if you're a little bit worried and concerned about things and you're saying that you have anxiety,
or
you
PTSD,
go through PTSD, right? And so on, you're diluting these terms. So now it becomes more difficult to separate someone who's just feeling sad because their life is not going well and they don't have certain things in order versus someone who genuinely has a mental.
I like this commentary from the guest on the Piers Morgan show. I like what Piers Morgan had to say, generally speaking. I don't always agree. I don't think he's always on the money. But in this sense, I think he's making sense. I do think there's a label inflation. Now, in one sense of the word, more awareness, more knowledge, people can be more cognizant of their behaviors and treatment of people from the community or have mental health illnesses. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep saying community. It's like a way of gathering people together for me. You feel me? But people who fit into the mental health or mental illness categories, people who are neurodiverse, I think the awareness creates better understanding for them. Or you would like. In the case of Kanye, it clearly hasn't. But we'll get onto that towards the end of the episode.
This is like a sprained brain, like having a sprained ankle. And if someone has a sprained ankle, you're not gonna push on him more.
Anyway, but there is a danger that we are overly labeling things, behaviors, distresses that normally would have been just seen as part of day-to-day life. In Buddhism, they call it dukkha. What
earth are you talking about?
Doku. I know what I'm saying.
It seems to me that almost every animal, humans included, aren't meant to be satisfied with the inbuilt base programming outcome, the state that humans are supposed to be in is minor dissatisfaction. Life is suffering from the Buddha, right? The word for suffering is dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A, I think. And then some scholars contest that word doesn't mean suffering, it means unsatisfactoriness. Life is unsatisfactoriness. You know, the holiday that you plan to go on, the steak that you intended to eat, there is always something, the sand between your toes, it could have been a tiny little bit more salted, it could have been a little bit less well done.
They essentially say it's a normal part of life. And the reason I brought that out is because it is distresses, stresses, anxiety, depression at a certain level is seen as everyday struggles. It's seen as intrinsic to the way of life. And I think the labeling has helped people understand their emotions better, but in some cases has left to damaging self-diagnosis.
ADHD. Listening to one song on repeat. I do that. Emotions go from 0 to 60. Yeah, I'd say I do that too. Skin picking, intrusive obsessive thought. Yeah, I do all of this stuff. I'm not totally sold on this though. I think we need to watch one more. All right, this one says 6 signs you may have ADHD. Adult edition? What's going on here? You are mentally ill. but in a sexy way. This is not the adult stuff I was expecting. This is kind of boring. Out of the 6 things that she lists in this TikTok, I'd say that I identify with probably like 5 of them. So I guess case closed. I have ADHD, according to the pharmacy of TikTok, of course. We'll put that in the fine print. In all seriousness, though, I think we need to stop taking medical advice from people with fake vines in their room, coming from somebody with fake vines in their room. From personal experience, I can tell you there is nothing going on upstairs, just more vines. Maybe a bit of lint. In fairness, though, those 2 examples can get away with the fact that they titled their videos with things I didn't know were related to ADHD or signs you may have ADHD. So there is some wiggle room for deniability there, but this guy, on the other hand, just flat out says that generic things like being a perfectionist or unmotivated are signs that you didn't know you actually do because you have ADHD, so you better get that sorted. Please give me Adderall. The reason I don't love this kind of content, regardless of whether it's directly telling you have or could have ADHD or any mental illness for that matter if you show these signs, is because it's pretty obvious that the creators that make this kind of content try to use as general signs as possible because their content will perform better if they do. The more people that see their videos and think, damn, I do that, maybe I have ADHD, the better off they are, which is why it isn't surprising that a lot of mental health content you'll see is incredibly surface level and more focused on being shareable than informative, which is incredibly harmful when you remember just how many young people are on TikTok seeing this stuff and taking it at face value. Like, it's freaky to remember that TikTok at this point has a lot more visibility than Tumblr ever did, and we're still seeing the impact that website had on teenagers at the time when it came to mental health.
Now, throughout this episode, you're going to hear me kind of point the finger at different aspects of society, but I think probably the most damaging, the one that bothers me the most, is the internet. I like how that clip showed the creators somewhat watering down their commentary or their content to make it more tangible. We all as creators have to do that to make it less dense and more accessible to the wider audience. I can be forgiven of that. I think the problem is how much it becomes a kind of loop and a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that now all you're doing is talking about content that you don't fully understand yourself, spreading maybe not intentionally but subconsciously harmful information. Some of those things that the content creator was saying is ADHD, they're just normal quirks.
That doesn't even make sense.
It's got to be, in my opinion, done by a professional, someone who at least is a fanatic. And I question if they are. The application of mental health is not very well applied by the layperson. A research study from Austria spoke about, I don't know why I said Austria like that. It's because I almost wanted to say Australia, but a research study from Austria discusses the potential risk of the continuing conversation around mental illnesses and mental health. It discusses how everyday people, lay people, are really good at understanding the criteria of said mental health, in this case ADHD, but the application is poor. Post-edit clip here, guys, sorry, it's a bit of a random one. What I was saying in the previous clip was all over the place. People understand the criteria of what said mental health could be, whether that be ADHD, ASD, even, for example, some being OCD, depression, anxiety. They understand what the symptoms may look like, but in terms of the application form, it's very poorly applied. The criteria is understood, but how it's applied is poorly understood, poorly applied by the general public. But I also would extend that to mental health practitioners. They themselves, they follow a very tick box exercise and poorly administer poorly administer is too strong, but I've seen failures in their administering of said mental health, misdiagnosis, overdiagnosis, certain communities, and that just comes down to, like I said, idiosyncrasies in terms of culture, community, gender, background, social upbringing can all play a role into people's idiosyncrasies and how they perform said neurodivergence or mental health condition.
The challenge lies in balancing accurate diagnosis with a nuanced formulation that considers the individual's broader context. And this is the reason why this is a diagnostic process where we think about the individual's broader context, biopsychosocial, cultural, diet, lifestyle factors, but also recognizing that ADHD is a condition that spans the individual's life. So it's important that we take a broader but also longitudinal view. So how do we conceptualize ADHD as a construct? ADHD is best understood through an evolving framework informed by neurobiology, behavior, and the environment. It's not a single pathology, but a constellation of traits that exist along a spectrum. In treatment, we can't focus solely on cognitive or attentional or behavioral domains. Why? Because the frontostriatal limbic systems are interconnected. Ignoring this interconnectedness can lead to incomplete or ineffective treatment.
I love that clip. Although I know it can be a bit wordy, essentially what he is saying is what I was saying. People don't understand the cultural context of the individual and just the individual context before you can apply it to someone. In that context, that clip is supposed to be used for more medical practitioners. And I want to say this, a lot of the videos I'm going to use are literally the tip of the iceberg. But I think this video, that clip, was a little bit better at expanding upon the context of it. That Austrian study, as I said, is discussing the kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that happens to people who self-diagnose, people who had very low levels showing symptoms previously to their self-diagnosis. Once self-diagnosis peaked and had extreme distresses and became clinical. In that case, I think it was depression and anxiety with their test subjects. But I'm sure it could be applied to wider and other neurodiverse symptoms. And I think it's a bit of I just think the dialogue around it waters down the real realities for people who suffer from it. As I've said earlier, what Kanye goes through.
Folks in general are not giving him that same space and compassion and grace, which I really think he deserves as someone who is going through, as we all assume to be, a manic episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on that later though. Let me not ruin the surprise. I think you can extend this conversation to the debates around men, therapy. I'm sorry, people hate that I talk about race a lot, but I don't care. But black men and therapy. You can extend the conversation to the way we discuss therapy in men.
But what people don't seem to understand, that shit, death fucks up family. There's no rebuilding that. When people talking about, yo, go and sit down and have counseling, how are you gonna have counseling, bro? My mom lives today because of her grandkid. My brother didn't leave no kids behind for me to even look at. Do you feel me? So my pain is different. People say, yeah, over time you get over it. I can't get over that.
Post-edit clip here, guys. You'd have just seen the Justo clip. I'm not gonna waste your time. Let's get into it. Why did I put that clip there? Well, it's because for two reasons. I felt like it was one of the few times that we get a real conversation about mental health, people's approach to mental health. I know on the face of it, I should disagree, because I don't agree with that point. However, I agree with the realness. I agree with the pain when I look and hear Justo's voice. I even see Spray's reaction. That to me is a real conversation. I think sadly on the internet, especially around mental health, a lot of the conversations, they're not real. They're not real to me. Black men in therapy, too often the conversation, in my opinion, has become fluff, has become cookie cutter, has become generic. It's sometimes, maybe accidentally, maybe just the nature of the net, but sometimes it just doesn't sound like they're truly engaging with why it's difficult for men to get involved, why it's difficult for men to get involved with counseling and therapy, and why it's so unique to men compared to women.
The way that we're trained to speak in therapy is, first of all, don't speak very much, right? Don't solve problems, just sit there and listen. And ask this person lots of questions that they're gonna say, I don't know to. How do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? I don't know. Well, how does that make you feel? I don't know. And so then if you're a dude and you go to therapy, you feel like an idiot, right? Because they're asking you all these questions. You're supposed to know what you feel, but you don't know. And that's because of the way that we've been taught about our emotions.
One big point I want to make is it's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to therapy. It doesn't always work for everyone. It's not a magic pill. It's so many people talk about it. It's not a crutch. You shouldn't be used as a crutch. Integration is needed. Some people, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna sound mean, even therapy couldn't save them. I've seen many women go to therapy and they're still dating jesters and clowns, invisible men. Let's keep it a band.
It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic. No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.
The point of this clip is just for me to bring out that this conversation needs widening, needs more depth. I mean, again, it's one of those conversations that just really hits the tip of the iceberg. Some of it is accessibility. Most men, especially black men, ethnic minority men, men who are from working class backgrounds, a lot of their first experiences with therapy is through, sadly, the criminal justice system. Why is that? It's due to access. In America, it costs a lot. In the UK, it's oversaturated. There's a high demand. It's hard to get on the waiting list. Many men, ethnic minority men, are at the bottom of the waiting list, seen as strong and being able to handle it. I've spoke in the what am I trying to say? I've spoke in the episode going forward about misdiagnosis, being overdiagnosed. People from working class backgrounds, black communities, ethnic minority communities are some of the most either overdiagnosed or misdiagnosed.
Damn.
So this chain that we want to whip men with, oh, you need to engage with therapy, you need to go to therapy. I understand sometimes you're trying to help. I understand some people are genuinely concerned for their well-being. But I believe online and generally careful how you engage with that dialogue, and also understand that if it's not integrated, the tools that you get from therapy, it's a waste of time. I have to be honest. Although I've been to therapy a few times, the best things that happened to me were the tools I was given and how I integrated it. It's not a crutch that's something you stick by to. It's not a magic pill. It's not a magic bullet that kills all problems. It involves work after, hence why the term do the work has gained such traction. And I really am asking people, when you are talking about men, their struggles, that understand that just going to therapy isn't the savior to it, and greater understanding and empathy, which I think sometimes when people say men need to go to therapy, it lacks. And here's an example of a cookie cutter conversation.
We have a communications, we don't know how to start it.
Voluntarily start that conversation.
And so to have an individual with an objective perspective guide you that way, then it just like, it releases. It's like taking a deep, like...
It just comes across as fake to me. Extraordinarily fake. But I think the reason why I'm so charged up for this one is for how people, and to me, this incident has exposed how people really feel about people who have mental health issues, serious mental health issues. This particular incident has exposed it.
Why would any of that?
Bro, I ain't finished. Plan is that y'all gonna pull my kids into y'all, whatever the word is, Illuminati system, and I don't have no say so on my kids.
To do with regret.
Hey, boy.
You gonna white people walk over me like that? And ask me some dumb ass shit like that? Ask me if my wife told me you should get free will?
But the crescendo piece, guys, Kanye West, aka Mr. West, aka Ye, that is actually his name now. He has changed his name to Ye. Do I think we're too harsh on him? Yeah, I do. I know what he's saying is crazy. I know that he's indefensible. I know that the tweets about Beyonce's children are unacceptable. I know that the conversations around Jewish people, despite what you may think who runs the world, to talk about people like that is unacceptable, unintelligent, and quite frankly, uncouth. I like that word. I just learned it yesterday. I'm not defending what he's saying. I'm asking you to judge him on the curb.
Mental health, having a nervous breakdown, going to the hospital, and having the stigma of being called crazy, it made me more relatable.
I suspect that we're pretty awful people if we say that somebody got a mental illness and then we watch what they do. If you say somebody got special needs, then why would you be watching them and holding them accountable like everybody else? Wouldn't you grade them on a curve?
It's really hard to watch people kind of call him crazy. People say that he's this and say that he's ill and all these things while at the same time not giving him an opportunity to be a human being.
The reason I use that clip as well is because we all know Kanye's got bipolar, and I find that in a world where mental health TikToks trend and people talk about how, you know, this is ADHD and we have to be understanding. A song called Anxiety is trending online, that people are judging Kanye by the same measuring stick that you would judge someone who doesn't have that illness. Now, I get it.
You know, on the one hand, we want to be understanding if someone, especially someone who's high profile and putting stuff out there in the media, saying things that seem inappropriate, to take into consideration. I wonder if he's having some kind of episode at the moment. But by the same token, people with the illness don't want everything that they say to be discounted because they have an illness.
People who have bipolar, not everything they say is wild and coming from a place of mania. Maybe people don't understand mania enough.
Mania is the defining characteristic of bipolar disorder. And here's how we define mania using the 5th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. A distinct period of abnormally and persistently elevated, expansive, or irritable mood, along with abnormally and persistently increased activity or energy lasting at least 1 week and present for most of the day, nearly every day, or any duration if you need to go to the hospital. Before we go any further, let's break this down. The key terms here are abnormally and persistently. So you have mood changes and energy and activity changes that are abnormal. This means it's not happiness that may seem abnormal to you because it's been a while since you were happy. We're talking about happiness or irritability that's way over the top, and people notice it and it looks abnormal. Now, yes, abnormal is a relative term, but probably the better way to think of it is it behavior that stands out in a negative way? This might look like you're planning to run for president even though you have no political experience whatsoever. Or you're feeling so on top of the world that you're going to end world hunger with this one idea that you just came up with.
Now, put that there so you could understand maybe that he's clearly having a manic episode. I got into a heated debate with my friends at 2 a.m., I must add, about why are we laughing at Kanye? Why are we even entertaining him? I'm not chastising academics about it, but personally, I wouldn't have interviewed him, or if I was, because I might, but I wouldn't have gone down that road. But I'm not chastising him, I'm chastising the judgment. And I get some people are pushing back against people who are agreeing with him.
And while, again, I feel like, and this is what makes Kanye compelling to some people, you know, there is like a bit of truth there in terms of like observing business incentives of the record labels, sure. Like it's easier to exploit a bunch of younger, smaller artists who have very brief hype cycles. But again, simultaneously, he's painting this as if it's like some huge secret and grand conspiracy, and that the reason he is becoming irrelevant and he's enemy number one in the music industry is because, Kanye's too old. Can't have these rappers hanging around for too long or else they'll start thinking things and acting out and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, some of the biggest artists in the industry, like Kendrick, Drake, J. Cole, are all sitting on like 10 plus years of music industry experience, and their popularity isn't dying out anytime soon.
However, Fantano, great music journalist, excellent music journalist. I think he comes across out of touch, if I'm honest, unempathetic, if I'm being honest. And it really ticks me off how people treat this man as if, well, quite frankly, he's not going through mania. If someone, like he said, had a bad ankle, would you push on it? Would you? If someone had a broken leg and was saying, you know what, I hate walking, the concept of walking is stupid to me, would you not understand them and come from a place of understanding that they are going through a lot? When Kanye speaks, you often find that a lot of his grievances come from a place of not being seen. I think it's a little dark that this particular one is to do with not having the liking image of his children, so he wants to monetize them. I don't know.
Plan is that y'all gonna pull my kids into y'all, whatever the word is, Illuminati system, and I don't have no say-so on my kids, and anybody close, whether it's the Jews, whether it's Cardi, anybody within my reach, I'm doing everything legally in my power, everything with my fucking mastermind. You get what I'm saying?
Little scary, that. But, and I really pray if someone is seeing a TikTok and thinks, man, that really feels like me. All my algorithm is saying I've got ASD, ADHD, which some of my friends wanted to label me with when they come from art backgrounds. Hilarious to me, but it is what it is.
Leave me alone.
Go and seek the professional guidance. And I'll say this, sorry, ethnic minority people, especially black people, but people from just working class background, if you've lived this experience, if you're from that background, if someone gives you a diagnosis and you don't understand why they've diagnosed it, or it doesn't seem to fit with your day-to-day life, you have to get a second referral. I get in America with Medicare, it might be different, but please get a second one. Too often people in impoverished communities, especially my community, the black community, we are diagnosed with things either wrongly or overlooked because we're really good at masking it because we try to fit in our best. It's actually very darkly depressing that that is a reality. So I ask people to be more aware of what's going on. As your knowledge increases, so shall your awareness. If you feel you fit into something, do the correct work and try to find out how. And when you see people like Kanye acting wild, going buck wild, please be more tolerant of where he's coming from. Be more understanding that he may not be coming from a place of harm, but he himself is not in a safe place. If you know anything about mania, he's actually the greatest danger to himself. And he keeps talking about people trying to kill him, which
I just know that the kid from Lincoln Park got killed for expressing some of these same truths.
Back again with another post-edit clip. Sorry, just trying to keep my notes up. You would have just seen the clip of Kanye kind of being scared for his life. I would have put either here or here what mania is, the statistical likelihood that you fear for your death. But it's not always that. Sometimes it can be euphoric, sometimes it can come from a place of depression. It's important to add this just for some balance, because I tried to bring balance for you guys, that we should look at the people around Kanye, his family, his friends, those supporting him. He's in a unique position, not just being a celebrity, but being a billionaire, that maybe the people around him are potentially yes men. Again, it's important to add this for full context that typically with bipolar, when people who have bipolar are going through a manic episode, they themselves can be very difficult on those people, exacerbate that with who we know Kanye to be, someone who doesn't like to be corrected, very stubborn. Plus, he's a bit of an egomaniac, potential narcissism. Now that's just me just throwing that out there. I don't want to be one of those girls, oh, he's narcissistic. But potentially that, coupled with mania, Kanye may be someone who's impossible to broach in those periods. So it's important to put that out there as well, that there are some uniqueness to Kanye, which may make his mania perform differently to everyone else. His mania looks different to other people's. Don't think that mania looks like that. Don't paint people with the brush who have bipolar as just crazy, because that's unfair to their condition, as I have said. But the reason I made this clip, because my other clip wasn't even that bad. It's just I felt as if I hadn't really made my point. And it's I'm tired of people talking about mental health conditions, neurodiversity conditions. But when they see someone acting out, they never say, or particularly in this Kanye incident, no one calls it for what it is, and it's potentially a manic episode. I don't want to say it because I'm not a psychologist, but I've worked in mental health. I've worked with people who suffer from mental health. I feel confident when I know what it looks like. I don't want to diagnose it though. And too often people label it as just crazy, unhinged, and it is difficult for the family members. It is difficult for the friends. And I'm sick and tired of the internet. I'm sick and tired of the internet pretending to care about something when it's cool and trendy and a song. But when someone's really going through an episode, or someone's not in their right state of mind in the present moment, no one gives them grace, no one gives them compassion. I stand by what Cat Williams said, and we're pretty awful people if we're gonna judge him by everyday standards. Does that absolve him of accountability? No. Am I saying what he's saying should be ignored? No. but there seems to be no creation of context behind what he's saying. Those journalists, I don't think what academics did was that bad, but people covering the conversation, they don't add in to enough, in my opinion, his condition. It's like judging someone running when they've got a broken leg, a sprained ankle. It's just unfair. It's unfair. It's intellectually dishonest. And that's why I said sycophants. That's why I'll go far as to call them bigots. Because you're pretending like you're caring about the people Kanye is offending, but you don't realize that it's difficult to watch when you've worked in that, when you've got family in that. If you have to watch someone have that condition and be judged so harshly when you know he's got a condition, but then play out like you're protecting the people that he's offending. It comes across not more than just intellectually dishonest. Honestly, that's why I called it bullying. I can't stand it. This clip wasn't even meant to be this long, you know. But I can't stand how people actually treat people. But online they make a song and dance about it, or they're quick to self-diagnose themselves with things which are general abnormalities and stresses of life, quirks. But like when someone's really suffering, no one even thinks to say, man, he's just wild, like, take Kanye off. Or Kanye's always been the eccentric guy to be kind.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Dick, come on. Whoa! Kanye! Oh, Kanye. Kanye, you okay? You okay? You alright, Kanye? Are you okay? Stop taking pictures, man.
And it's been exacerbated. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying to even enable the behavior. But what I am saying is, if you're covering this and covering it is journalism, as a journalist, as someone who does commentary, and that's what I feel that my channel should be, you have a right to add the context. You have a right to discuss something in its full conversation. And to miss it out, I just don't respect it. I don't respect anyone covering this Kanye situation who doesn't speak about his bipolar. And people out there who've worked in it and are laughing at him, making fun of him, judging him by some standard that everyone falls to, but he clearly has a condition that will, you know, at times make him a bit more prone to reckless behavior, reckless wording. If you don't put that in its correct context, I don't respect you. I think you're a bully. I think you're a sycophant. I think you're a bigot.
I don't respect that.
To conclude, like I said, when I went away, I realized how big this world is. I mean, not even this world, this universe is vast, vast. Larger than I can even comprehend, truly. I think any of us can comprehend. And you go to different places and you see how similar we are, how unique we are as well. And like, on a real thing, I think us as people sometimes make it seem smaller than it is. And I think it's through compassion and understanding, not only for our differences, but how we are all similar, that you can kind of move this conversation around neurodivergence, diversities, and mental health conditions, mental illnesses forward, and a more tolerant, inclusive, and supportive society. Some people are going to disagree and think that, you know, chastising Kanye is cool, or they're just pushing back against the people that are agreeing because it's harmful. I hear that. That's cool. But genuinely, I just wish that people were a bit more fair in their criticism. To miss it out to me is just incredibly just gross. Gross negligence. But again, I'm going on for too long. I love talking to you guys. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And what is underneath my nose? I'm out.
Influence is how you could use a nigga you never wanted to sign anyway, that Dame signed. You ain't show up to my first fucking wedding. You ain't my family. I always wanted some kind of family. Never had family out here. So what the fuck? And then they take my actual blood family from me in my face.